All right, Chaz, let's get right to it. And even though we're in the dog days of summer, right? We can all feel that at this point. The Reds have been at this for months now. They're more than 120 games into the season. So it's that time of year. We've been doing this for a while right now, but yet there is, or there seems to be, a newness to Terry Francona's team. Case in point, Wednesday's game against the Phillies. There was the new guy, Miguel Andujar, the new right fielder in Noelvi Marte, and the new hope that seems to come with the rebirth of Hunter Greene. So if someone says to you, Chaz, hey, Chaz, I'm feeling a new optimism about the Cincinnati Reds, do you buy it? Is there new hope for this Reds team with 6 weeks to go?
Newness is something I completely agree with how many moving pieces there have been. There's also the side of it that's a continuation. To me, what the Philly series represented was a continuation of what we saw against the Padres, Yankees, Mets, the Cubs the other week. We've seen these series over the course of the summer where the Reds have risen to their competition, where they've met the moment. And actually, after last night's game, Emilio Pagan said it's the other stuff, the consistency, the day in, day out stuff against the bad teams that's been keeping the Reds ultimately right now just one game back out of the playoff picture. But there is I keep going to the word upside as well that you see with Greene on the mound, for example, with Marte as a right fielder, what that represents for his long-term upside. Andujar is an upside play, trying to put that masher in the middle of the lineup and hope that this is the stretch where there's the consistency that he puts his tools together. So there's a lot of newness, some true upside that you're seeing, and then some dramatic series wins.
But no one's interested in upside beyond how it affects the rest of this season. And so the newness being what Emilio Pagan's talking about is what this team has been through most of this year when Hunter Greene wasn't here, when Miguel Andujar wasn't here, and when Noelvi Marte was still in his head about third base. And so the newness and the upside that's more immediate comes with some of those changes. And good teams have stories like these that show up late in the season all the time. We talked at length last time about the story of Hunter Greene and what would it be. He had a good start his first time out. And we've said it before, if you can pitch, you have hope. And so I'm thinking about that series against the Phillies. If you envision that as a playoff series and the starts the Reds got in that series from Abbott, Singer, and Greene. In a playoff series, it's likely that Singer is not part of that equation. But you got 3 starts that gave you a chance against what on paper is a better team, and the Reds just took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. And so Terry Francona said it as we circle back to Hunter Greene. Terry Francona said it in terms of a first game back. That was kind of the best case scenario. There was no rust. He threw a ton of strikes. He got 6 innings with no walks and kept his pitch count in check. He was efficient yet dominant, and that's kind of where we left the story last time with Hunter Greene. And the question was, do you pick it up there as he returns to this team? That's a newness after the last couple of months that could really help down the stretch, right?
Yeah, there's a 100% intangible perspective we can look at this from,
Right.
but just from a true true X's and O's perspective, though, the 2 things that stood out to me the most were the command, the amount of strikes he threw, because that to me was kind of going to be the big wild card of the night. And then I mean this from an X's and O's perspective more than an intangible perspective, the mentality, like there was an aggression, there was a confidence without being boisterous. Greene waited to, as silly as this is, pound his chest until his last out of the game. He was sharp, he was focused, he was precise, and he was efficient. And you put all that together and you add in another X's and O's detail that his splitter was on. And for the splitter to be on coming off just rehab starts, that's notable because that's a pitch we've been tracking the inconsistency of ever since he added it 2 years ago. So there was a lot just physically, mechanically to like about what you saw about Hunter, and then also the bigger picture ramifications.
I'm watching the game, and I wrote down 2 things. I said, for Greene, I thought there were 2 big spots in the game. First spot came in the third. 2 on, 2 out. Here comes Kyle Schwarber. And Greene rose to the occasion and struck out Kyle Schwarber. No one wants to see Schwarber in that situation. That's how he makes his living. Greene rose to the occasion and got him in the third. The other big spot across his 6 innings, the final guy he faced, and this is what you're talking about with the emotional outburst, I guess you could call it, is Schwarber doubled against Greene in the 6th inning, was standing on third base in a 1-0 game, very similar to the game we had seen to start the series with Andrew Abbott on the mound, and Bryce Harper is up. Greene rises to the occasion in a 1-0 game and punches out Harper. So when he had to have it, facing 2 of the best hitters in baseball, he had it. In his first game back, he had it, and that's a big upside and a big positive for the Reds moving forward. One more point before we get deeper in the show on just kind of reliving the series win against the Phillies. When the Reds clubhouse opens to those of us in the media, there's a certain time that we can get in, and Charlie's notebook is full of notes and things and people that he wants to talk to. I have far fewer notes than Charlie's notebook has, but I had one thing on Wednesday afternoon, and that was I want to go talk to Miguel Andujar. And so I walked in. He wasn't immediately at his locker. I'm probably talking to Rufus about something meaningless and mindless, standing,
Hi, Rufus.
waiting.
Big fan of the show.
Of
we
course,
appreciate that.
Of course. He's one of the torchbearers for the Power Stacks community. But I'm probably talking to him, and I look up literally seconds later, and my young co-host is making a beeline to Miguel Andujar's locker to do exactly what I had planned to do, not knowing that both of us had the same idea. So, you were more on top of your game. You won that. That was an aggressive move, but you won that and got to Miguel Andujar first on Wednesday.
I was Noelvi Marte. I was Noelvi Marte trying to take third in that situation.
That's right. It's very aggressive, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it works. So since you got there first, and since each of the 2 minds on this podcast were thinking the same thing, what did you get from one of our early conversations with Miguel Andujar on being here, settling in, and being as impactful as he's been?
He's a quiet guy. He's a very modest guy. I mean, he's tearing the cover off the ball, and there's a modesty that you see coming from him. Something that he alluded to that he didn't go in depth into, but definitely is a big part of his story, is the struggles he faced when he was. So he had that great rookie year with the Yankees, and then for 4 years he just struggled, and he got hurt, and he was an up-down guy, and he just couldn't really click, even though he was a great player in his rookie year, I believe in 2018 that was. And then the opportunity to get kind of a fresh start in 2023, heading into 2024, first with the Pirates, then in Oakland. He worked with a new hitting coach, but he didn't change his swing. And there is a very aggressive backyard in the best possible way style that Andujar brings to the table. Now, he'll swing at some pitches way out of the zone. It's kind of I guess CES would be the best comp in terms of what we've seen in terms of his approach at but CES carried the Reds lineup for a stretch in 2023. CES won the Reds a few games this year. And frankly, I don't think Andujar is going to have 1,000 OPS this season, going down the stretch with the Reds, but he's hot now. And it's at the point where 10 days ago, he was like number 11 on the depth chart against right-handed pitching. Now he's number 4. He's hitting cleanup against right-handed pitching. Yeah. And that's a testament to what he can do when he's on.
All right. We're going to dig deeper into things like that in the lineup later in the show. But now, after scintillating opening conversation about the series win against the Phillies, we get into the meat of the program, and I say officially welcome to Power Stacks, proud members of the Growler Podcast Network. Coming up as we discuss today, Jekyll and Hyde, feast or famine. It has been one of the most obvious characteristics of this Reds team all season long.
I have a question real quick. Is it bad that I use the Jekyll and Hyde reference, but I really don't know who Jekyll and Hyde are? No offense, that's an older reference for even your generation, right? Like Jekyll and Hyde are old school.
But it's very common. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you understand? Okay. No,
I'm familiar with the concept.
It's perfectly okay. This is who Chaz is, but you also
the Drake and Josh quality of the Reds offense wouldn't have quite worked. Sorry to interrupt the dramatic tease.
No, yeah, I know. No, that wouldn't have landed. But yeah, you did interrupt the dramatic tease. Hopefully we kept the dramatic music throughout to just kind of carry the theme. No, absolutely. We're going to dig into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and not Drake and Josh. Also, Terry Francona and his buddy Freddie Benavidez. They compare notes from time to time. And when it doesn't work, according to the manager, it's Freddie's fault. We're going to explain that one and have that story as well. And one of the sharpest guys in the Reds clubhouse has takes on baseball's biggest burning question. And that question is, what the heck's going on in Milwaukee? And how do the Brewers do it? Who that person is and what his answers are. It's all on the way. But first, I want to do... How about that? I got the bell back for this show, so that's good. So let's start with the bell and the leadoff spot and the all-or-nothing Reds offense. I'm going to simplify it that way. There's a lot to unpack here, Chaz. If you look at the highs and lows of the Reds this season, you could really pick any point in the season and probably find a stretch of games that make this point and illustrate this point. But we could take one of the most recent stretches, 14 runs in Pittsburgh the last time they were there on Sunday, after a stretch before that when they didn't score much, and then a stretch after that when they didn't score much. As you start to unpack it at this point of the season, where would you start that conversation?
It's kind of who they are, and it's funny. I was,
kind of who they are.
I reported this story Monday afternoon, and coming off the 14-run game, and then Monday was a bang your head against the wall offensive performance. Tuesday breakout against a great left-handed pitcher. Wednesday breakout against a great left-handed pitcher. There were a lot of stats that I included in my story on this, but really this was to peel back the curtain, the type of story that the theme and the messaging was so consistent from the players I talked to that's what led me back to the numbers. So I bet this has been a conversation internally with Chris Valaika and those guys, but they all kind of were saying the same thing. Be more aggressive. When a guy drops an early pitch, breaking ball, hanging fastball, be ready to pounce on it. Look to do your damage there earlier in counts so you don't put yourself behind the 8-ball. They kind of gave me that idea, and then the numbers backed it up. So real quickly, the numbers, the Reds have a 355 average and a 938 OPS when they swing at the first pitch. These stats were entering Monday when I wrote the story. Well above average, but the Reds have put in play the second fewest first pitches in all of MLB this season. The average team swings at the first pitch 32% of the time. The Reds swing at it 29% of the time. They also have the fourth fewest plate appearances in MLB, decided by swings in counts with 0 strikes. So it's the classic thing, right? Hey, look for the mistake pitch, but if you don't get it, live to fight another day. Well, they have to take that aggressive approach more often, and that's been a conversation. So talking about offensive consistency, I asked Spencer Steer, and he was one of the guys who kind of led me in this direction I ended up going. You guys have had games where you scored 10, scored 14, and then you've had your games where it's been a struggle. What do you think's been the key for the games where the offense as a whole has broken out this season?
Well, we got to find a way to be more consistent.
The line everyone's talked about kind of finding your aggression lever. What's been that process like for this team, finding out how aggressive you guys should and will?
I think it just depends on, the matchups and what the scoreboard dictates and all that stuff. I think the biggest thing is when guys are getting ahead of us and pitchers feel like they're, dumping first pitch curveballs in, and when they're too comfortable getting that first strike. I think that's kind of the time to, be more aggressive, scare those guys out of the zone, make them earn the strike, make them make a good pitch, first pitch of the bat, little stuff like that. And I think that's when we're at our best is when we're aggressive early and scaring guys out of the zones and finding ourselves in hitters' counts that way.
And it goes to the point probably that your best games have been the games where you've kind of racked up some homers as a team this year. When you're aggressive, you'll naturally be in the spot to do some more damage like that.
Yeah, I think the home runs are what they are, man. It's not like we're up there trying to dink the ball around the yard. We're all trying to hit line drives in the gaps, and those will turn into home runs. And I don't think, it's from a lack of effort. I think it's just, homers happen when they happen. I just don't think that as an offense, your whole approach is, let's see how many home runs we can hit. I don't think that works. So I think the home runs show up when they show up, and I think that comes from good approaches. And, they help win ball games, but I don't think it's an end-all be-all.
Last thing, what's going to keep you individually? It seems like you're hitting a little stride.
Luck. I think just hitting the ball where they're not. Oh, okay. And then obviously, not missing the pitches when I get them and having a good approach. I think it's really comes down to those Those things right there. And then another one is just pitch selection. If I'm swinging at the right pitches and I'm not missing the mistakes, then usually I have success.
The thing that stood out to me was a line that I think was on Spencer's mind, which I think is something he wanted to say. Like, we're not trying to kick the ball around the yard. That's the line that I wrote in my notes as he said it. Like, yes, we've talked a lot about the Reds' offensive identity and the Reds' offensive approach, and they're not chasing homers, but they're not abandoning the idea of hitting for power either. And it's that balance between aggression and quality at bats and pitch selection that a young team and trying to establish and adopt a new offensive identity has been trying to walk that line all season. And it's, I keep calling it a scheme change that they're still kind of going through the process of. And I think it's also a reflection again of the Drake and Joshness, just kidding, the Jekyll and Hyde-ness of this offense that we're seeing.
Let me ask you, we kind of talked about this some during the game, but as far as Noelvi Marte, you have to remind yourself he's only played 50-something games this season. He hasn't been around the entire time, but his total now is up to 16 upper teens on number of games he's played in right field. And right from the start, I think, speaking for myself, when Terry Francona said, I think he's more comfortable there than he was at third base. I think it'll help his entire game now that he's more comfortable. I thought it was going to be a little more difficult for Marte to maintain his overall game while dipping his toe into right field. Now he's out there pretty much all the time. And does it feel like to you that Terry Francona was right, but that this quickly, it's almost kind of unlocked part of his offensive game by unburdening some things that he was struggling with defensively at third base? Is that too deep, or is that fair?
I'd like to get this off my chest. I've been thinking about this with Noelvi Marte. So let's tell some stories real quick.
All
Tyler
right.
Stevenson in 2021, I believe, gets a, what was that? I believe he hit the go-ahead single against Mark Melancon in like the best game I've ever been to in San Diego. And the next day, we all looked around and said, Tyler Stevenson's good. He's a big piece of the young future. I remember Spencer Steer had a series in Fenway Park in 2023 where he tore the cover off the ball. I believe he was on his way to winning Player of the Week, something like that. And I remember we looked around and I was talking to people in and out of the, on the inside and the outside. And you know what? Spencer Steer is just good. He's a big part of this. McLean, that Boston series comes to mind as well. The Dodgers series comes to mind. But of course, that was about the whole team. But that was kind of a week where it's like, yep, McLean, check. TJ Friedel, I always go back to the Rangers series in 23. He had a walk-off in that series. He was showing some power and some zip that he had athletically. There are these moments that we remember that are like the origin story almost of someone, like that part of the movie. Like that part of the movie where, all right, you've had the spider bite and you look around and you use the powers and you're like, whoa, okay. And those are the moments that those other guys had. And I think that this last week or two has been that moment for Noelvi Marte. I think he's kind of planted his flag, and I think he's just good. And after all the concern of what he was and really what he wasn't last year, what he was one of the worst players in baseball in terms of pure performance. I feel confidently saying that Noelvi has solidified and cemented his status. This is what it's going to look like. This is who he is. And he's 23? That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. In coming out of the Phillies series, he had 10 hits in his last 5 games, and half of those hits were for extra bases and impactful hits. And we haven't seen anything. Everybody says he's good enough to play in the outfield. He's athletic enough. He's had a couple of big throws now, including in the Philadelphia series, that lead you to believe that that's all possible, that the entire package is possible. It hasn't been perfect. You can watch him play, and certainly it's a new position. There are going to be times when he doesn't look exactly the way you want him to look, but I think you've seen enough. As you said, he's good. Give him some time, and maybe that is the future for Noelvi Marte, and maybe that's a good future for the Cincinnati Reds. Time now for Tito's Take, and we talked and teased this off the top, Chaz, when you mentioned the lineup. So now there are interesting decisions that Terry Francona can make, because you have a lot of options. You have some new options for the lineup. And I thought it was interesting when you talked about your conversation with Spencer Steer and what stood out and kind of what jumped out at you, and you wrote it down. There's something like that you and I discussed with Terry Francona recently as well. Of, was there a little messaging in something harmless that he said in one of his pregame gatherings with all of us that pertains to maybe how he's thinking about things right now with the lineup and beyond? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I try not to do close readings of these types of things. It's a manager sitting back at his desk, but there was a point, I believe he was talking about something else. And then he kind of circled back to this really interesting line. We agree that we want to be the best we can defensively, knowing that you do have to score some runs. We've been stuck at times where you're chasing offense. I think the we there is, we over the course of his managerial career. When you do that to the detriment of your defense, it usually doesn't end up the way you want it to. Let me say that last line one more time. When you chase offense to the detriment of when you chase offense to the detriment of your defense, it doesn't usually end up the way you want it to.
Yep.
So the lineup right now, like we established on the last show, like the 4-11 quality of this offense, 4-13 if you count Hector Rodriguez and Sal Stewart. Shake them up in the ping pong ball jar, and it could come out in any different order. Like Miguel Andujar was 11th against right-handed pitching, like I said, and now he's 4th. That's where this thing's at. Matt McLain, where's he? And as you look at ways to, if you want to get Austin Hayes and I guess Noelvi Marte is going to be in the lineup every single day right now, but Austin Hayes and Gavin Lux and I guess Andujar too in the lineup every single day. Well, there are only so many spots and someone's going to have to be the odd man out. Would that be McLain? Would they consider something where they reduce McLain's playing time a bit, play Lux more at second, use that open spot at the outfielder at DH to make sure you get, say, Austin Hayes and Miguel Andujar in the lineup? You don't want to chase offense to the detriment of your defense. Now, they have given McLain 3 days off in the last 8. So that has been seeing an uptick. My bet is that it's like, you make the lineup every day, you mix and match, you see what you got. You look at, I believe the pitches that have given McLain the most trouble this year are like high and away, like Cowboys use the term, he runs out of bat. If there's, and I'd have to go into more specific numbers to really get a sense of the style of pitcher, but if there's the style of pitcher that McLain struggles the most against, could that be the Gavin Lux day at second to open up a spot for another guy? It looks like 3 to 8 days. That's where it's been going. But that one line from Francona does lead me to believe that McLain, who by the way is playing an elite second base, and his double play ability is like one of the best things about this team. I don't think they're going to go too far in their direction of reducing McLain's playing time based on that, but it is an interesting lineup storyline to watch going forward, especially if you're looking for at-bats for a guy like Sal Stewart or Hector Rodriguez.
Yeah, and we've established you said about the offense, maybe this is who they are, but you can work within this. If you have, we reinforce that pitching is the strength of this team. But down the stretch to win games, a consistent offense, it's got to be there. You got to find more consistency, or you're going to have games like the first game of the Phillies series where Andrew Abbott is dealing for almost 8 innings, and you're just hanging on by a thread. One run was not going to win that game. It never felt like that. And the Reds have to find a feeling and a lineup and an approach that allows them to get the big hit at the big moment. In the series ender against the Phillies, every run they scored came with 2 outs. Every run they scored was with 2 outs. When those opportunities, when you write them down in your book and they go away, when there are men on base or men in scoring position and you have one of your good hitters up, but there are 2 outs, you go, okay, missed opportunity. The Reds have to find ways and a lineup that gives them the best chance to take advantage of those opportunities. It feels like they've started to do that. How would you characterize Terry Francona, though, in terms of how often or how aggressively he changes lineups or ways of thinking for putting the lineup together? And certainly we heard him say that this is something he and Freddie Benavidez consult with each other on.
Yeah, the night before every game, he makes a lineup for the next day. Freddie makes a lineup. They compare, they trade notes. outproduces the formula, the algorithm. Not really. Actually, some teams do use an algorithm, so I mean that metaphorically. The metaphorical algorithm produces a lineup. One of Tito's biggest lineup changes of the season took place this week when he moved Steer up to second, made Andujar the regular cleanup guy for now. We'll see how that evolves, and then moved McLean down to 8. He has been mixing and matching more than he has at any point this season, getting the 10th guy in. So like Austin Hayes right now, he wasn't in the lineup on Monday, for example, against a right-handed pitcher. So if you want Andujar, Lux, and McLean all in there, well then like Hayes is out, or take one of those guys out, potatoes. They've all been rotating through. So there has been that 2023 July-esque Reds quality where like, all right, today's Lux's day out, today's McLean's day out, today's Andujar's day out, etc., to make sure that Hayes gets in there, and make sure that, Lux and Marte and McLean and Andujar are in there regularly. Now, Fraley he's the bench bat now. He's in the role Jacob Hurtubise was in at the start of the season. I think a critical thing to stress are two things. One, the Andujar development that we've been talking about shows how quickly this all can change. Like if Hayes gets hot again, he could be the everyday cleanup guy again in 3 days. Like that's how fluid this all is. The other thing is that the Reds in July 2023 had a system where David Bell at the time was literally like spinning the wheel every day, and everyone had their day off. And it was like, all right, today's, go down the order. I had a spreadsheet where I mapped it all out, and that's what they were following. Like everyone got a day off and it moved around. The Reds are kind of at that stage right now, except kind of less technical and mechanical. But then the 2023 Reds, they had 11 guys they were playing every day. Well, then they went out west in mid-August, and by the time they got back, Votto, India, who had already been hurt, McLean, and Fraley all went on the IL, and I don't think I'm missing anybody. And all of a sudden, and Nick Martini saved their season, but all of a sudden Nick Martini's a starter on this team. So things will change and opportunities will create themselves because guys will get cold, guys will get hurt. The only things really written in stone right now are Friedel hitting first and Elliott hitting third. Things will be very fluid and evolve a lot. And these are difficult decisions, but the pieces will continue to move from where they are now.
By the way, to wrap that story, Tito said, if you don't like the lineup and it doesn't work, that must have been the one that Freddie submitted. So he kind of passed the buck on that. But yeah, the good news is, I know guys are going to get cold, they're going to get hurt. But the good news is, as we said on the last time out, I think, is the health within the position players for this team.
They're all healthy
good.
except for Tyler Callahan.
Exactly.
Every single one of them.
It's been
even
pretty
down
astounding.
to AAA.
Yeah, been pretty astounding. So that gives you, as Terry Francona, certainly a lot of options. Let's get in now to the notebook. And the Reds just took a series against the first place Phillies. You get a much needed day off. They lost the day off with the Speedway Series. Now you finally get a day off and you get to take a little bit of rest and a little bit of momentum into what feels like a massive series now at the ballpark for the weekend, because you get the one team that is captured the imagination and the curiosity of baseball, because no one really can get a sense for how the Brewers are doing what they're doing. They're going to run away with the division at this point, barring some sort of equally massive collapse from Milwaukee. And, we watch Milwaukee year to year, Chaz, and they lose great players. And I mean great players, all-stars, Cy Young guys, Willie Adames. They lose their manager, Craig Counsell. Their GM goes to the Mets. All of these things, reasons why the small market Brewers might just fade into the distance and become irrelevant. And instead, they not only just keep winning. Right now, they're having this historic run where they've won at a ridiculous rate going on a couple of 2 or 3 months now. As everybody tries to unpack this, I thought you had a great idea on how you decided to maybe pick apart maybe what some of the secret is in Milwaukee. What was that?
This guy knows the secret. This is Wade Miley, who spent a few years in Milwaukee. And so last year he was hurt for most of the season. His arm blew out. and he was traveling. He was around. He was spending a lot of time in Pat Murphy's office. And I believe a lot of the time it was like him, Yelich, and Bob Uecker when he was around, before Uecker passed away. So Miley has been at the grassroots of this organization, even behind the scenes, the meetings, the coaching perspective. Like, he's seen all that. So I went to Wade and I asked, what's the Brewers' secret?
They're good. They got a good thing going over there. I think it starts from what Matt, front office, kind of what they built. You got to give some credit to David Stearns. When he started this thing when he was there, they got a really good foundation in the minor leagues. I mean, they bring up players you've never heard of, and they bang. They rake. The guys they pick up, they've done their homework on them, and they're successful. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I get that question all the time. I know Pat Murphy is the type of his personality is the way he manages. You want to run to a wall for him. Like, I just feel like you're getting the best. He finds ways to get the best out of each player. They play the game clean. I don't know. You can't pinpoint one thing. They pitch their ass off. Their bullpen seems like it's always great. They cycle new guys in every year. You're like, all right, this would be the year. And it's like, nope, they're nasty. I don't know. What they're doing right now is impressive.
How do they have the culture where, like you said, like Isaac Collins comes up and it's like how do they keep refreshing the pipeline like that? And what's the key to that?
I think that's the credit to the organization, the credit to what Matt and his team has done, preparing these guys in the minor leagues, and when they do get to the big leagues, they're ready. They fit in. I know Isaac was up a little bit last year, fit right in to our style of play, and he's kind of established himself as a really good big leaguer right now, along with 4 or 5. It seems like every time I watch the video, they're all hot. Terang's hot. Collins is hot. Yelly's hot. Freaking, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. First baseman's.
Vaughn.
Who?
Vaughn.
Andrew. My guy.
Yeah.
Greatest pickup of all time, right? This guy was hitting $130. He was a great hitter in Chicago for a long time, for 4 or 5 years. Kind of went through some rough stuff, changed the scenery, and bam.
How do they, they're just so consistent in the style of baseball they play. They're so clean, the defense. Where does that culture come from?
I think it's an expectation there. You got to. It's part of what they look for, part of who they are, their identity. I mean, that they chase guys down. That's what they do. They look for a good defense. I mean, offensively, they can beat you in so many different daggone ways. They can butt around the yard. They can freaking hit homers. They slug. I hate sitting here bragging on them, but gosh, what they're doing right now is impressive.
Pat Murphy, you're really close with him.
Yeah.
Talk a little more about what makes it so special.
He's just always kind of loose, man. I tell people he's kind of a talker in a good way. He and a couple guys, Tobias Myers last year sticks out to me. His first start, I don't know if it was his debut, but his first start that I can remember. He's like coming in from warming up for the bullpen. We're 5 minutes of game time, and Murph's like, "Hey, bro, this ain't about you. I don't care how you do. You're fishing for the team. Like, just like talk for shit, but like meaning it in a way, but loose enough where guys don't like tighten up about it." And I mean, it's just got that way about him.
One more thing that it's a great story, by the way.
I love listen. I could listen to him all day. I love that, and the way that he's that guy for the Reds. He talks to guys in the clubhouse that way, where you can mess with guys to a point that it is productive. It loosens things up. We see it every day, and that's part of the reason he was with that team while he was hurt, and part of the reason why Terry Francona has reinforced and said over and over how much he wants Wade Miley around this team, even if he can't pitch yet.
Yes, first of all, yes, let's give Wade his flowers too, because Wade's the man. One more thing, Wade didn't say this as much. He alluded to it, but someone else in the Reds building kind of stressed this to me. The thing with the Brewers too that doesn't get enough credit is just how Christian Yelich runs the ship. And hearing the way that was described, it almost kind of was Joe Burrow-esque in terms of how Burrow kind of just runs the operation of the Bengals and the mechanics of the building churn through his wheels. Yeah. Yelich isn't as good as Burrow. He has won an MVP. And he is a terrific, terrific player who's on a big contract, who's established, but also seemingly kind of, and I don't know Christian, but seemingly, this is what I've seen. This is what I've heard. He's just right about everything. And if he's wrong, well, then kind of you're wrong and you're doing it the wrong way, because he just has such an innate feel for the right way to do it. And the impact that has on everyone who sets foot in that building, the impact that has on the 26 man who comes up from AAA, that's a big piece of the stew. And Yelich is a guy who doesn't get enough credit.
At least Miley sees it the way most of us see it, that they bring up players you've never heard of and they rake. That's my thought when I look at some of the things and look at the box score, or look at the highlights. That's my thought is, where did that guy come from? And how is he having this moment?
I love the greatest pickup of all time line. That made me chuckle. Andrew Vaughn.
Andrew Vaughn. And he's right, cast off in Chicago for the White Sox, and all of a sudden here he is. Anyway, pocket pancakes and free burgers in Wisconsin. All of those stories come to Great American Ballpark this weekend. The Reds had a fantastic start to the homestand, but as you tick off the things on the schedule that make the Reds schedule the most difficult schedule for a playoff contender down the stretch, this is the weekend that jumps out. This series against Milwaukee, and the way that team has played and the vibe that they bring to Great American Ballpark, this will be a big challenge and a big test for this Reds team. It will not make or break their season, I don't believe, this 3-game series. But if you want to create something and you want to build on something, here's a huge opportunity to do that against Milwaukee.
You know what, though? You look for moments in stories. Well, in 2023, the Reds had that series against the Dodgers. That was more than it was. The Reds are a game out right now. If the Reds jump into a playoff spot by taking a series against the Brewers, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Fantastic story. And then it's off to the West Coast. Still in the notebook, I want to ask you this, because part of our conversation was just that, as you said, everybody positionally is healthy. Terry Francona has options. Do you believe, or is there even room for some of those options to be another late season story of someone at AAA right now helping, having some sort of impact? Because I know you're thinking about Sal Stewart and Hector Rodriguez.
I just think we have to keep talking about it. So Sal Stewart's hitting .337 with a 1.074 OPS. Hector Rodriguez, that would be in 23 AAA games for Sal. Hector Rodriguez hitting .322 with an 873 OPS in his first few weeks in AAA. We're reaching that point, and it's very similar, almost reminds me of Noelvi Marte in 2023. So they've each played about 23 games in AAA, Sal and Hector. Noelvi played 39 games in AAA in 2023. And then the Reds called him up, I believe August 19th. They didn't really have a spot for him, but they made a spot for him. And what did he do? He hit .316 down the stretch that season, and he made it work. And actually, Ellie slumped, and by the end of the season, he was starting a lot of games at shortstop for him. There's a track record and a precedent that prospects who are this young, but this talented and this productive at AAA can force their way into this conversation. Now, could Hector and Sal be up right now if the Reds hadn't traded for Andujar and Hayes? Maybe. In a lot of ways, they kind of took the spots, which is fine. Hayes' defense, we'll be talking about Cabrian Hayes more for the next 6 years and the offense versus defense value. And then Andujar, we've just talked about how much he's slugging. But those are kind of the spots. And if you were going to call them up, well, that's a spot at a lineup you'd probably have to take away from Andujar, Lux, or Marte, who have all been fantastic. I don't see them calling up Sal to play second base. Sal has played second base, but he can do it. But he's kind of at the same level of Gavin Lux right now. So if you're calling up Sal to play second, just play Lux at second. But injuries will change things. Guys will get cold. That will change things. I do look around that 39-ish game number that Marte had in 2025 and say, hey, man, if Sal and Hector are hitting that well, it's time. Let's go. That's how highly I think of both of them. Just important to keep this at the forefront of the conversation as we look at how the Reds make these decisions going forward.
Yeah, but you talked to Nick Kroll about it. What did he say? How does he view those guys in where they are right now as it relates to where the big league team is right now?
He said you have to have a spot for them to call them up, but at the same time, they're trying to push their way here. And Nick stressed this. He said this multiple times. They're doing everything they possibly can. He said for each of them, there are kind of two big development points, kind of quality at bats translating into punch. Hector especially is like the most aggressive hitter in the organization, but he has shrunk his zone this season, and that's kind of been his story. working real quality at bats. And then Sal's always had polish, but translating that into honing it on his pitch and then turning on it in a way that he can get more power, kind of like the other Reds hitters from a pitch selection standpoint. They've both been doing that. And then defense. Sal has turned himself into a serviceable third baseman. Now, Brian Hayes takes away from his ability to be the everyday third baseman, but Sal's also spent a bit of time at second to keep some options open. They're also going to start adding first base onto his plate. And then Hector Rodriguez, he hits the ball so hard. He's kind of a smaller guy, like kind of stocky. And Tito has mentioned his arm as something that he's working on. It's a process. He's not going to come in and be Harrison Bader. I don't know why I went with Harrison Bader, but he was the guy the Reds brought in to fix their defense.
He was just here.
He was just here. He's not Harrison Bader in the outfield, but he's working on that. Nick Krall stressed that as development points for each of them. I see Hector and Sal as part of the young core going forward. Huge parts of the plan for 2026. And we saw in 2023 with Marte and with CES at the time that they are willing to throw those guys into the fire at this stage of the season.
One final thing in the notebook, but just because we don't pass up good stories, and we certainly don't gloss over great or amazing stories. And one has already been written. I mean, it could take multiple additional chapters that might make it a truly even more amazing story. But we're talking about Tejay Antone, former Red, 3 Tommy John surgeries. And after each of the first 2, Tejay Antone was the most positive, the most upbeat. This is okay. I'll work my way back. I have new goals. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get here. Here's my timeline. And at the time, I think most people who know that injury and know what those things look like, you say, I'm glad he has that great attitude, but man, I just feel for the guy. He doesn't want anybody to feel for him. He literally meant all those things, went back out, and after a 3rd Tommy John surgery, Chazzy's on his way back and just pitched in the Reds minor league system professionally for the first time at Dayton, and it's already a great story.
Let's go back to the second Tommy John. It happened in 2021 when he was literally like some of the best relief pitching I've ever seen. Then he blew out. He had the setback entering 2023. I believe a flexor strain in the comeback process. That was a really, really emotional time for him. He thought about, retiring then. He's spoken, we wrote at the time about like the emotional conversations he was having with his wife. The pain, is it worth it? And then he kept going, and then he made an impact in September, and then he made the 2024 opening day roster. He made it through all that. And then after a couple games, he blew out again. And the conversation was like, all right, that's it. Great try, TJ. What a career. And you have a great career ahead of you as a guy who helps pitchers with Tommy John because he's so passionate about pitching development. But then a moment I'll always remember is the press conference he had the next day where he's like, all right, I'm doing this. Here we go. And he strapped his boots up, and that was April of 2024. And now it's August of 2025. And is he going to pitch in the big leagues? Obviously, have to earn his way up, and the Reds have a lot of relief pitching depth. Just the fact that he even helped Dayton make an impact in one game, to me, that's it. This is an unbelievably successful, inspiring story. Like, what's the movie? We Are Marshall. Like, what is it? They beat Xavier at the end. Like, beating the Xavier football. And I go to all the Xavier basketball games. I have a lot of great things to say about Xavier. Beating Xavier in a football game, like that's not an emotional ending to you would think, except it is. Sometimes it is. And Tejay Antone, even being able to make an impact on the Dayton Dragons this season, and then the opportunity to do who knows what going forward after everything he's been through, it just warms my heart. And last thing about him, talk to the people in Goodyear, Arizona about TJ, because he's gone 3 times now through the process. Talk to the cafeteria workers, talk to the groundskeepers, talk to the guy, Brandon, who runs the facility and operates the facility on a daily basis, the guys who kind of help with him, I know those guys, they're in the offices there on the sides. Talk to those people about Tejay Antone, and that's why this is such a cool story.
He pitched an inning for the Dragons. He hit 96. If you watch some of the video, some of it looks familiar. But again, like you said, his story already helps so many people, and I think he's going to use it and continue to elevate his story and elevate the people around him. So from all of us at Power Stacks, we're ringing the bell for Tejay Antone, and we can't wait to see what's next. Getting back to where we started, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Chaz, is the story of a respected London doctor who through scientific experimentation creates a potion that allows him to transform into the evil Edward Hyde. It explores, the novel does, which first came out in the late 1800s, themes of duality, good and evil, and the hidden darkness within human nature. That's just what Google tells us of what.
Do I have hidden darkness?
I didn't say that. I don't
No,
think
well, it's
any
human
of that.
nature. Do we all have human darkness?
Well, of
that's an
course we do.
existential question.
I think, of course, we do. You bring none of that to Power Stacks, though. So, yeah, you're just a bright light on the other side of the Power Stacks double box for me, and that's what you've always been. Good show. It's going to be a fun weekend at Great American Ballpark. We hope to see you there. Check out Power Stacks wherever you find your podcast. We're on YouTube. The YouTube can be quite entertaining from time to time to add the visuals, so check that out. And don't forget PowerStacksPod at Gmail, PowerStacksPod at Gmail. Any feedback, any ideas, sponsorship questions, we can do all that and get right back to you and make something work for you and your business if you would like to support the Power Stacks community. Chaz, final thought?
This is what it's all about. I mean, a playoff spot's not on the line this weekend, but it's a classic, like, go watch some ball. This will be a really fun series that has the opportunity to be a cool moment for the Reds if they can pull through.
Amen to that. Thanks to producer Kent for all the hard work. Thanks, Chaz. We'll see you at the ballpark. And for you listening or watching, we'll see you next time.